Hi there. My name is Dalton Ruhr. I'm a senior solutions architect here with Qlik, and today I'm continuing my series on SaaS enablement for Qlik Sense. Today I'm specifically going to be looking at one of my very favorite features, which is called dynamic views. Why are dynamic views so important to me? Well, that's a great question because end users always want more data. Let me give you an example. I'm sitting here inside of our SAP Orders to Cash analytics application, which is one of our accelerators that we provide. And in here, I'm giving end users the ability to see not only orders and not only fulfillment, not only billing, not only receivables, they get to see them all. Every single one of them. And there's loads and loads of screens. But you know what? The problem is they also know that we have an SAP Financials application and an SAP Inventory Accelerator application, and they want access to that as well. Well, if they just want to go from orders to cash to SAP Financials, that's fine. I can simply do document chaining and call that other application. But in my case, the user's like, no, I want to get the data loaded on the fly. I want current details. But in my case, the user's like, no, I don't just want to go to the whole application. I need to see general ledger data and I need to see up to the minute values for specific things. Well, we also have a feature called on-demand application generation. So maybe I could take this application and just go read all of the data live. Well, I probably need to rethink that. I don't really want to load everything live because there's an awful lot in that application. So if the user is looking for just some general ledger data, let me think about how I might be able to provide that to them. If I were making the query for the values that they needed, I would simply do something very simple like this. I happen to be using Snowflake as my repository where we've used Qlik Replicate and Qlik Compose to generate operational data stores and data warehouses and data lakes and data marts. And if I needed to just get data, I would simply use something like this, a little where clause where I said, hey, where the company code is in this set of values or the cost centers in this set of values. And I think most of you are probably familiar with SQL, and that's pretty much what I would do. Well, a dynamic view application basically is that same thing. I simply say, here's the exact data I want to get to, because I'm just going to be showing them a handful of things that they've asked for live. I don't need to read every field in from our entire fact table, just specific key fields that they need live. And in my where clause, you can see I've got the exact same thing where the company code is in a list and the cost center is in a list. Only instead of hard coding the values, you notice here that I'm doing $ expansion for some variables. With on-demand applications or with dynamic views, you simply set the values in your parent application, and then the template application would get a variable with what you've set. And so I set these values accordingly. Now you notice up here I've said if ODAG is active. That means if I'm in an on-demand scenario where I'm being called from my orders to cash application, then I would have it active and I do something. If it's not active, like if I just want to press this load data button, I need to set those variables so that this code has something to call. So I just hard code a couple of values in there. But as you can see, there's not really a whole lot to this. You're taking a SQL where clause and you're simply making it variabilized. And when I set this up to be used in orders to cash, it will pass me the values. So I'm going to come back to here and I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to go to a screen where I've kind of got myself ready. And in my particular scenario, the end user has agreed with me that they need to provide either a company code or a cost center or some combination. As long as they've made some selection, so they're not expecting me to give them our entire gigabytes of data on the fly, we're both happy. And so I'm going to walk you through how I would create a dynamic view so that you can see this really is very, very simple. All I do is come over here and I'm going to say I want to create a new dynamic view. And I'm going to point to the application that is my template. That's the one that I showed you the code for. And then I simply give this a name like General Ledger Details. This isn't too complicated. I can have no row limit. So if I wasn't looking at gigabytes of data like a general ledger and I just, I had a table of maybe, active patients who were in the waiting room and I know that the values are going to be so small, I could just go ping it and pull everything back. In my case, I do want a row expression. And what I'm going to say is, like my end user and I agreed, if they've made any selection in either field, then I want to move on. Otherwise, I set the value to a higher number, and I'm going to say that my maximum row count is 1, meaning you either pass the clause or you don't pass the clause. You can set that up to do a count of some ID, where you already are passing the keys and you just want other dimensions about that fax ID. In my case, there could be brand new records being inserted by accounting all day long, and I want latest and greatest as of right this second when I go to run. And I create that, and what you're going to see is it now shows me some visuals here that were master visuals in my other application. So if I come back and I show you the app, here's my dummy data that I hard coded, and you'll see some very, very simple visuals here. It is not intended to be used as an application, just configuring a few visuals. And what I've done is set these up as the master visuals for this. So I've simply created a couple of charts, nothing big here, and said, hey, those are master visuals. Those things then show up to where I can just drag or drop which of these charts I would like to show to my end user. I can size them as I wish. And you'll notice here that they say, hey, you didn't meet our criteria yet. So let me go ahead and put some values in here. I'm going to filter to this, and let's go ahead and pick these two. And now this is saying, hey, warning, you need to refresh if you want to get the latest and greatest data. I can click into that, or I can always just click this little refresh icon that will show for each dynamic view chart. And it simply goes off, and what's happening is it's called this application, it's passed these parameters to it, and it's fired the where clause live. If my end user says, no, I didn't really want to see that cost center or this cost center, I really want to see these cost centers, again, I get notified that it needs to be refreshed, and I simply refresh. And within a couple of seconds, I've now read through gigabytes of data out in Snowflake for my entire general ledger, and I've brought back a specific company code and a couple of cost centers that are needed so that they can get the values. If they want pretty charts, they can have KPIs or bar charts, or it could just be purely detail-driven data that's behind the scenes. If you'd like more information on this, feel free to go out to a blog post that I've made called Dynamic Views in Qlik SaaS. Ta-da! And it's out on data on the .rocks. So it's data on the .rocks. And if you find this post, you'll see that I've given you a complete tutorial, including showing you the actual code, what you have to enable from the Management Console to enable dynamic views and all. Hope you've enjoyed this, and if dynamic views or ODAG were something you loved in Windows, I wanted to make sure that you're super comfortable they are still supported in SaaS, and if anything, it's even been made easier with how nice that code can be concise now by just passing the variables right into the where clause. Have a great day.